How's things, everybody? Now, apologies. I'm going to try to get done this Dropboxing the last time. There's just a lot of background noise, lads. Does someone have the telly on in the background?
Don't know.
Literally. Hold on, I'm going to try to get rid of this Dropbox because I've done this again as well the other night, typically. But as well as that, yeah, it's just, yeah. How's things? How are you, Dec? I can't hear the word you're saying now, typically. Now, can you hear me now, Dec? Dec, I can hear you, but honest to God, Julio, sorry for the start. You can hear me, can you? Because I can't hear Dec at all.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I do, and I can indeed. He's obviously just had to mute his camera or muting his his speakers by accident. Anyway, first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody who's obviously Verge and on viewing in tonight. We're just going to touch on the Porto game itself, obviously tomorrow. Another Europa League game for ourselves. Obviously, there's had to been big talk and a lot of media coverage surrounding the future of Erik ten Hag the past couple of days, ever since obviously the Spurs game and obviously the demise of Manchester United's goal, considering your poor run of form going into the start of the new season. Obviously, we continue that through. And I'm just going to lead on with a couple of questions tonight, just in terms of the match tomorrow, and obviously what's on everyone's lips at the moment in regards to, like I said, Ten Hag's future. Julio, will come to you first and foremost. Just basically on the results that we had over the weekend, and obviously the absolutely disgraceful start that we had the start of the year. Realistically, after Sunday, like, do you see a way back for Ten Hag, let alone the results ultimately that Man United have to come up with the next couple of games?
No. It was very poor on Sunday. It was very poor. There were a lot of fans, even the fans who would back him, even they were pulling out, because I think if you step aside from the whole, we've sacked the last few managers, not given them time, let's give this guy time, stepping away from that, you look on the whole how it's been, and we've backed managers less, and we've arguably sacked them for less. And I want to compare it. I mean, I was in the comments of the review show, and a couple of points I made in the comments was comparing it to other project jobs in a way. And I look at not just what's happened this summer with Motta and Flick going into Juve and Barca and already playing their style of football at those clubs. Motta having played with a rebuilt midfield, by the way, like the whole midfield just completely revamped with new signings. Even the shit show at Chelsea I mentioned, and Maresca's already got them looking good to the point where, people are saying that Jadon Sancho was wronged in some way for some reason. But the key examples, I think, you look at Arteta and Klopp. Now, they, in terms of money spent, they were also, the way we've been spending, you'd think we'd have loads of money, but we've been doing that whole buy to sell process for a part of it as well. But forget the fact that those two managers had half years. After 2 full seasons, in the third full season, both teams were mounting title challenges and competing. Arteta finished second when they, bottled the league after being top 93% of the year. And, Liverpool were like a John Stones off the line clearance from winning the league, but they went and won the Champions League. Ten Hag is nowhere near that right now. You know, you thought after his first season, you thought, okay, possibly like this might be, we might not be as far off as we thought from what Ranić was producing the previous year. But I just think that after last season and how bad that was, you know, some of the defeats, some of the performances, it was very much a case of he needed a good first 6-7 weeks of the season, even though he got backing in the summer because let's not forget, the board went around, looked for a new manager, interviewed people, tried to agree terms with different people, and then decided there's no standout candidate. Let's stick with what we have. And I will praise, even though they extended his contract a year, I think that was a good idea by triggering the extension, because it's the most minimal way of backing, whilst also like it saves them, especially when the two biggest names and the biggest decision makers weren't in house at the time of the decision. So it would have been worse if they sacked him when, you know, the two big decision makers didn't have that kind of say so, that input, at least legally anyway, you know, gardening leave and whatnot.
That's why it was going to say, because realistically, sure, obviously, Omar Brad, etc., would have had like a strong hold in, you know, ultimately picking who our next manager potentially would be after Ten Hag, considering obviously he went out and spoke to numerous managers in the summer, obviously without the likes of Omar Brad at the helm, as per se, you know. Yeah, it's just a strange state of affairs. What had happened over the summer? Realistically, you get a manager who was off the back of 2 cup wins. Albeit we've had an absolutely dreadful league campaign, but realistically, at the point in time, I don't think that his job was. I think his job was saved, number one, by that obviously getting another cup. And second of all, just the outpouring of like fans basically saying that we want them at the helm. Like, I thought that was the narrative going into the summer, at least based on the fact that we're only off an FA Cup, and you know, I think we're just sick of it as a whole. Declan, I'll invite you in. I'm sorry, buddy. You were on mute the last time. Know what was going on. What's your overall thoughts on Ten Hag? Where do you think we stand? Dec, I can't hear the word you're saying, buddy. Not one word. He must have been logged out there, Julio. He's going to have to log himself out and log back in. Ironically, we had these issues considering last week we had to continue myself. It's just obviously this new sim or whatever. Declan, can you hear me now? You can hear me, obviously, but now I can hear you.
Yeah,
we have daylight. Thank God.
Yeah, press the off button and restart.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there the weekend, and to say it was a shit show was is an understatement. I've never seen Old Trafford clear out like it did on Sunday, and just the overall kind of malaise with the whole team and the display. Like, I mean, fans were gutted by that display. We go into every game hoping that we're going to do something, but to watch that on Sunday, like, I mean, I was row AA in the Stretford end, right behind the goal, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't a display. There wasn't one player that I could say turned up. And from talking to the fans around the ground after a lot of them were saying that he couldn't save his job, and that the next 2 games are going to be defining for him against Porto and Villa. And I honestly believe that if he loses them, he's gone. I actually think he will be.
Yeah, it's just I suppose like the bigger picture here is he's had 3 years at the club, and you know we had to get off. He had to get off. Basically, he had to oversee Manchester United getting off to such a good start at the start of the year to basically give himself some time in regards to how fans perceive him, and you know how he's perceived as a whole at Manchester United. Basically, as you know, our manager. I think you know ultimately we haven't got there whatsoever. Over the past several years, and you know we've had obviously good moments and good spells, but we keep reverting back to the age old. Just clubs that have come to Old Trafford, let like clothes to the likes of your Liverpools and your Cities, and absolutely thumped us at times, where it literally hurt your heart, if that's the way to put it. No one really expected Spurs to come to Old Trafford obviously over the weekend and do such to us. Albeit people, ultimately reckon Manchester United slept on Spurs the weekend, thinking that we'd potentially get away with the results, and got absolutely found out. I'll come back to you, Julio, for a second. Just like in hindsight, so obviously we had such a a change of managerial systems over the past several years. I keep referring back obviously to Ferguson, due to the fact obviously we haven't had fruition from a manager, albeit like I said, good spells. Do you think, say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there's a big obviously outcry, ironically through social media, that fans realistically would have him in the fray as coming back? In hindsight, do you think he was treated unfairly in comparison to the time that Erik ten Hag ultimately has received now, and obviously the financial back as well? Not that Ollie didn't get himself, but realistically now in hindsight, do you see that's the case?
It's a difficult one to answer that, because on the one hand, I fully agree with the sentiment that Ollie is harshly treated by certain sections of the fan base, at least then, and to the rest of the court of public opinion in sense of what he was, because he did do a lot of good. And what you had with him, I think, was just his hands were tied a little bit with, I think he got the players he wanted in his first year, but after that it was very poor recruitment on the board side, to the point where you question how many of the players he actually asked for after the first season. Like that last summer, like Sancho was a signing, for instance, that was chased for years even before Ollie came in. Ronaldo was, that move looks likely. No one's going to not go in for Cristiano Ronaldo, if we're being honest. But on the one hand, I loved the time under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He just needed a trophy, I think. But I do admit that he did overachieve with the squad that we had, especially when he first came in as well. We went on that unbeaten run. And then let's not forget, before Bruno Fernandes came in, like, we were poor, but we were relying on a severely out of form Jesse Lingard and Andreas Pereira to create for us in midfield, because Pogba was injured for a long period of time. So there was a poor squad there. That was Solskjaer's problem. There was a poor squad. There was a good first 11 when utilised correctly. And I think he found really what he wanted in the second season. But on the other hand, I see the outcry. I see the reason for wanting him to come back. We felt connected as fans to the club with him. It was like someone was brought in to restore Man United to its greatness, and what better than someone who literally lived that era, was there for that era, gave us that era to an extent as a player. But I don't think it's right to bring him back, because just for himself, I don't think he deserves this fan base and the criticism that comes with it, because you'll get all sorts of people online. Like, there are people who blame him for a drop off in mentality. There are people who put it this way: there's an inconsistency. We say that Mourinho couldn't do what he could with the football club because he couldn't change the culture to winning, because he couldn't get rid of the players that he had. There were lots of wasters there under him, but Ollie had a lot of the same wasters, and there was never that same argument used for him in the sense of why we were so bad. It was never a case of Ollie can't change the culture because there's still a lot of crap players here than other clubs, for instance. I think there's a comment that's just come in about signing loan players in January. It's a very rare thing we see from top clubs, but we seem to do it more often than the other top 6 clubs. I think if Ollie was to come back in some capacity, if it was to be as a manager, I'd have to suggest that you have to have a good coaching staff around him. But I think for Ollie's benefit, I'd rather just, as much as I love him, and of course I would love to see him come back and see that football played, and if there was proper recruitment around him, he may still be in a job to this day. But I just think that I remember what it was like during his tenure, and I loved the football, but it was very underappreciated. And unless you're going to give him really good coaches and he'll focus the man management side and they'll work as a collective, I don't think it's right to go back. I'll say that for anyone. You know, people have the same philosophy with relationships. You know, you don't go back, you know, rose tinted glasses and all that. And I just think for everyone's benefit, we move on to something new, move forward.
Okay, and Declan, what you think yourself? First and foremost, Declan, sorry, before that, just want to say thanks to everybody in the comments and everyone who's viewing. Yeah, we'll touch on Declan. What you think in regards to Ollie? What Julio just said?
I think he, like, while I'd love to see him at the club, I mean, my favourite chant of all Ollie's at the wheel, like, I mean, that had Old Trafford rocking every game. You know, I think it is the connection between what he did for us in '99 and the fans, and I think we all wanted to see him succeed. I'd love to know would he succeed now with the structure that's there now, because he didn't have that during his time as manager. We seem to have got good men in each position now in the club, so I do wonder, would he be able to succeed with them around him now, you know? I think he was, at the time, he was too friendly with a lot of players that didn't deserve to be at the club and wanted to be friends more so than a manager, and I think that was his undoing. He wanted to be everyone's friend when he should have just got rid of a few of them, you know. Pogba, Lingard, Martial, they should have all been bounced out long before he left, you know. Do I think it'll happen? I don't think Sir Jim and Ineos are anyway swayed by what the fans think. I think they're going to go with what they believe and what they think will succeed. So they're going to be ruthless, and I think that's what's going to be Erik's undoing. They're not going to worry about giving him the rest of the season. Would I give him? I've been backing Erik since last season. People thought I've been mad, but I think the writing's on the wall from now, and I think they'll act sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think like realistic, none of us here, no Manchester United fan, wants Manchester United as a whole to fail, and that obviously involves Erik ten Hag as well. However, like realistically, football is a results-based business, and the results for Manchester United have not been there. You know, particularly under his tutelage, as per se. You know, I know, I keep getting phrased out that he's like a master tactician, etc. I think Benny McCarthy was obviously in the like in the media during the week, and he seemed somewhat ruthless. Like I said, in the group initially, I said to myself, "There's no way that he'd come out and." It was nearly like scathing at times, but we can see how journalists can pick bones of such, you know. But you know what he basically said was that he doesn't have relationships with the players. He's just, you know, he's not seen as a father figure, as per se. Someone like Ollie was potentially seen, like you said, just at times overly friendly with some of the players that potentially should have been moved on from Manchester United before that. Again, obviously, the age-old narrative popped his head up this week. Manchester United obviously, you know, needs to move players on. I you said, like, how many players do you want us to move on? Because this seems to be the going thing every time a manager comes in. So yeah. But realistically, Julia, I'll come back to you, like, you know, God forbid the gun is to your head and Erik ten Hag loses his job after the weekend. I know we obviously have the international break, and I know we'd referenced it previously, but who are you getting in currently? Who are you going to get in?
Do you know what's the really annoying thing? There isn't an obvious candidate, because it really depends because there's many different routes Ineos could go down about this. Like, if you look at what has been Man United's history, giving youth a chance, winning, and playing good football, like doing it in style. And annoyingly, there isn't many that would do all of those at once. At least there's no guarantee. Then you could, you know, and here's the question: do you go down the route of you get someone in, see if he can last 5 years, you know, like a Klopp, or an Arteta, you know, that kind of project? Do you go down the Chelsea route of just getting serial winners every 3 years, but then deem it as some sort of failure, which I won't think Ineos will go down anyway? Do you go for a young, unproven manager who hasn't really won, who maybe the style will be there and eventually the results may come? Or do you do kind of what City did, where they got in Mancini, who knew how to win a league and cup, did so, then brought in someone like Pellegrini to continue that and evolve the style from that defensive Italian approach, and a great like middle ground between Mancini to then go into Pep and what his style is all about, and then have obviously that philosophy that Pep comes in with. So there's so many different routes. I mean, I think what Ineos will want as well, because I think they try to agree terms with Tuchel in the summer, who I have my own issues with as much as I like him, and they couldn't agree on some form of terms. And I think based on a pattern with Tuchel, I think it's to do with power in terms of recruitment, and I think they'll want a head coach of some kind. I don't know what managers would accept that. I mean, there's no barriers, nothing. I'd love like an Ancelotti or a Zidane, someone who's just won things at the top level. But I mean, I remember, I can't remember when it was, but Ronaldo spoke to the board. I know, right? A player having some kind of jurisdiction over the board in some way, and said that a club this size needs an elite manager who can handle expectations, big players, and win. And one name he mentioned was Allegri, another was Zidane. But there's so many different roads to go down. I mean, I really like the Inzaghi links. I really like Inzaghi at Inter, because I think he plays a really good style of football, but he also can, with his principles, he can still adapt tactically to something defensive if necessary. And he's done it at Inter on a bit of a budget, because they've been in financial ruin for years. So they've had to sell players and buy players on the cheap. But yeah, I think there is no clear candidate for me right now. There are a lot of names that are coming out, so it's a gun to my head. I'd probably just say something ridiculous like myself, because it's the only answer I could give, because they're not going to sit there for hours listening to me explaining the pros and cons of each manager that we're being linked to. So yeah. It's really difficult right now.
It is. It's such a difficult situation to be in, because realistically, it's just, I suppose, the harrowing aspect of this is, like, we continuously get links through the media, the likes of Gareth Southgate, etc., being mentioned, which obviously we do not want. Dec, what's the story with yourself in regards to that? Like, realistically, again, if it's a case where you could pick a manager, someone realistically that's going to do well for Manchester United over the course of time, who are you, if the writing is on the wall?
The way we're playing at the moment, we'd probably get Ted Lasso and Roy Kent, because, I mean, we're a bit of a shambles at the moment, I have to say, I agree with Julio. The Inzaghi links are actually pretty exciting. He's doing okay with a very limited budget. His style of play is pretty decent. So, I mean, like, realistically, he's unproven, for the most part, and it'll be interesting to see how he do under the Ineos ownership, because, I mean, obviously Manchester United is a bigger club than Inter Milan. It's why everyone reports on us, and a Manchester United player blows his nose is reported on Sky Sports for a week and as a headline news, and I think that's the problem that we have. A lot of managers have come in and they haven't been able to handle the scale of the job. And unfortunately, I think Erik is falling under that bracket now. And I think the job has become too big for him. He's been backed money-wise. He's been backed in every way possible. And he keeps coming out with these excuses, and it'll take time. No, it can't take. He's been there 3 years now. And just we have teams that we used hockey. Every time they came to Old Trafford, they were defeated before they came in the door. Now every team coming to Old Trafford thinks they can get 3 points and score against us, and that's the problem. And that has to change before we're ever going to see success again at Old Trafford. He wouldn't have been there except for the FA Cup win, I don't think. I think that saved his job at the end of the season. And he needed to start better, but it's gone to shit, as we can see. since the season started.
Football can be a very fickle-minded sport in that regard. Like you just said, we had such a terrible season last year, topsy-turvy in the league, getting absolutely battered from time to time by mediocre clubs, and coming to Old Trafford and have an absolute field day. I won't bore anyone to tears, obviously, with the past results, etc. But yeah, we're the shadow of our former selves. Just teams come to Old Trafford and they're like, okay, this is a free for all. Like Spurs came the weekend and basically said, this is going to be a nice trip, London to Manchester, and we're going to pick up 3 points and absolutely batter them in their own backyard while we're doing it. It was disgusting performance, and I tend to agree. But, again, like what you said previously, the writing seems to be on the wall, because I just don't see a transition where we're going to get out of this period, and that's the sad reality, because we don't see an overturn of managers every several years, and it's nearly more or less like saying you hang your hat on something. We're going to get someone in with the hope that they're going to do well. That's realistically what Erik Ten Hag got the job for, based on obviously the back of his Ajax career, and what he'd done obviously at Bayern Munich second team previously, and stuff of that regard. But yeah, it's just harrowing times. Dec, I'll pop one to you just for a second. Like obviously we've Porto on the Europa League. Realistically, on days gone by, this would have been a Champions League fixture on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, having a few points down the local for it. But obviously, we're in the Europa League for a reason. Second of all, in regards to results not going our way recently, obviously, do you see any change in his team tomorrow? What do you see changing ultimately?
Well, see, that's the problem. I don't see a lot of change by Erik. Where the results haven't gone our way, he doesn't seem to have changed the team up accordingly. I'd hope that Ahmed is back tomorrow night. I think when he's played, he's actually looked good. He's attacked. He's done well. Can't understand how he's been overlooked a few times. I mean, he 100% needs to win tomorrow night. I mean, we had the draw against 20, which was another woeful display, which didn't help. So I think he needs to win. And it's not going to be an easy game away to Porto. But he needs to set down a marker and win tomorrow night. I don't care whether it's a boring 1-0 win, ball in off Xerxes' arse. I don't care. We just need to get the points on the board, and we need to start winning. And we need to start winning games ugly as well, even just as a minimum, before we start getting the play back. So, look, come here, I think like every Man United fan, we're going in more in hope than anticipation. We're not expecting much, but we're just hoping for the best, that we can actually get a result.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said in that regard. I just think we need to be more dirty and cynical, and I don't mean that I just think we just need to grab games by the scruff at times. Just it seems when you look at the players as a whole that their confidence is so low at the moment, because we haven't had a great start whatsoever. Bar obviously that 3-0 to Southampton, we fickle-mindedly said to myself after that game, and obviously the game of the League Cup, that we were going to change the tide. Thought we played excellent in the first half against Crystal Palace, and we just didn't get a goal. And then after that, it just seemed to be downhill. Anyway, look, I'm going off in tandem here. Julio, what do you think yourself tomorrow in regards to obviously starting line on Sunday? Obviously, you're not going to ask your starting lineup, but do you see much changes in that regard coming for tomorrow night?
I don't think we'll see many changes. You might see one or two, but I don't think you'll see many. I think the issue is, I think Ten Hag will try to go with his best team because he needs results, and also if there's players if the players have played poorly, it's a bit of a tongue twister that, played poorly at the weekend, so he'll want them to almost come back and fire a little bit. And I think, like I said before, he needs results now to save his job. There's a good chance he's thinking in his head, probably, I know they want a style from me and I'm trying to implement that, but I need results. Otherwise, I'm going to be out of a job in 6 weeks, if I'm lucky. So Yeah, I don't see many changes. You might see one change on the right wing and then a change at centre back, maybe pushing it a little bit. I think no, tell a lie. I think you'll see a change in midfield. I don't think he will play Mainu because obviously Mainu went off for the weekend, and it might be a precautionary change if we're lucky. Because I think I saw that he was apparently named in the squad for Porto. I could be wrong on that one. I might have just misread that completely. But if he is, or if he's not, I quickly skimmed over it. It might have been that he's not, but there will be a change in midfield for definite.
Yeah, I second that. There has to be some level of changes. We're not expecting an absolute outpouring, a change of starting 11 based on the fact that he's just not that type of coach. Realistically, from a personal level, you could have dropped at least 9 of them. I thought Hanna had a very good game the weekend. As good games go, based on the fact, obviously, the level of saves that you made, number one, and the amount of saves that you had to put up with as well, and obviously Garnacho, Garnacho obviously seemed to be our main outlet. Other than that, there was no player there that was worth their salt the weekend, and realistically, that's ultimate to his own demise as well, So we'll see come tomorrow night. But like what you said, it's a very, very it's going to be a tight game, no matter what people think. It's an away game, it's a European trip. Porto haven't been great this year, based on what I've been reading. They're in somewhat of a transition themselves. Villas-Boas took over as their I think it was their club president or something to that effect. I didn't realistically read up on it, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Just back to Dec for a second. Obviously there'll be some changes, particularly in the middle of the park. Obviously, like what Julio touched on, that we don't know if it's a case where he's ultimately going to be in the squad tomorrow, but we may now potentially pulled his hamstring after the weekend, after he was substituted realistically with an injury. Is there a case for Casemiro and Ugarte to play together? Is my question.
I think Ugarte would definitely help Casemiro, because Ugarte is going to do more of the dog work. Casemiro has had a mixed season, as we've all seen. He's been found out in a few games. Definitely think he could start if Maino is injured, because he has got the European experience. He will find an easier game to play with Ugarte doing 90% probably of the work for him anyway. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start now tomorrow night.
What do you think as Ugarte as a whole? I know obviously the game that you had the weekend, but again, look, we as football fans and any other football club can be very fickle-minded at times. The jury seems to be already out on the poor young man. What do you think of him as a player based on what you'd seen in the past couple of weeks?
Do you know what? I actually like him. I think he's going to be a good player for United. Look, anyone coming into the United team is going to struggle with the demands of the Premier League when they start. But I actually think he's a good baller. I think he's going to be a top player for us. And yeah, probably hasn't helped that he's come into the team when it's all over the place. And the expectation on him is always going to be more, because everything that United do is reported on by every news outlet in the friggin' world, and everything is just doubled down on us. I like Ugarte. I think he's going to be good, 100%.
What about yourself, Julio? Did you see much of him in that regard over the past couple of games to basically have somewhat of an opinion on him? How do you think he's going to do for Manchester United?
I mean, I watched him at Sporting, and I really liked him. I think the issue he had at PSG was that obviously he just never settled in at PSG. That's why he wasn't a first choice player there. I do like him. I just worry about the way the system works for him, and how, whether it was him or Casemiro, we're both seeing them almost exposed a little bit and left on their own in the middle of the park. So when we lose possession going forward, there's just, I mean, I literally said in a group chat today that not even prime N'Golo Kante is covering that much ground on his own in that midfield. So I just think, I mean, I think there was a report, I think it was quite a reliable report, that apparently Ten Hag wasn't wasn't for the signing of Ugarte and would have rather have kept Scott McTominay. But Dan Ashworth, I think it was Dan Ashworth anyway, the name mentioned, that was adamant that we signed Ugarte for that holding midfield role. So I was for the signing. I just think the system is exposing. I say exposing him. It's more. We saw the same with Casemiro. It's just leaving him far too stranded, alone, and lost in the middle of the park, and it makes them look like bad players. So I think if the system changes, or the manager changes, or the style changes, whatever, I think he'll look like a better signing in time.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't think we've seen enough of him. Realistically, like, we're always going to have an opinion, and more so than not, the wrong one, based on a man who was at the coming into a poison chalice of a position in regards to Manchester United the past couple of years. As soon as Casemiro started to show a bit of legginess, i.e. losing his legs, the Geordie was out, and it was like, okay, we need a young, exuberant midfielder that can break down play. And realistically, that's what we're after buying. Very obviously tactically astute midfielder who's very energetic, but ultimately he's only at Manchester United the past couple of weeks, let alone couple of months, based on the back of his transfer that seemed to stem all summer long. Yeah, I think myself, I don't know what he's gonna do tomorrow, because he's one of them who, strangely enough, he could, Ugarte could be dropped altogether, and he could start Casemiro and Eriksen side by side. You just never know what he's going to do. Realistically, like what we touched on previously, it's wisdom at times. Like, again, I'm not usually an hag out in the sense of, I obviously want us to get results. Again, like I keep touching on, like every other Manchester United fan, but as well as that, I am, level-headed in the sense of where did the results going to come from. And he, again, he doesn't make many friends from a Manchester United fan base at times with his decision making. And again, that was evident over the weekend, because we just got absolutely ran riot. And I'll keep touching on, maybe because I'm still hurt over it, I don't know. Yeah. Dec, anyway, just in regards to the weekend as a whole, how did the trip go other than the result? Did you have a few points and there was a bit of crack, and I'm assuming you went to the Blaze, etc., yeah?
You know what? I travelled over with the Kildare Man United supporters club. Aaron Tobin's the chairman of it, and he ran do you know what? It was class from start to finish. Never let 90 minutes of football ruin a good day, and we actually went on the sauce. Started at about 8:05 in the morning on the ferry. Didn't stop till after the game. Made it to the Blaze. Met a good few of the lads from the MUFC Irish Reds page on Facebook, and plenty of songs sang, plenty of points had. Definitely the football soured it a bit, but we kept on the session.
So what was it, a day trip kind of thing? It was back then.
No, we sailed out that morning. We got delayed and ended up in Manchester for 3 p.m. Quick 3 points in the Blaze.
Oh,
Down, game, back to the hotel, stayed overnight. Was mad.
lovely. So,
Yeah, I did. I left my house at 12:30 a.m. I didn't stop going till probably 2:30 a.m. the following morning. But long day, but you know what? We love going to Manchester.
see, that's it. For me, as well as that, I know we touched on that a couple of times in the podcast. Look, you support them. It doesn't matter what's going on the pitch. Like, you'll get fickle-minded fans who will only attend when realistically we're going through these periods of, fruition in regard to our results, which obviously don't too often enough for Manchester United fans. But just going over and arriving and touching down in Manchester and walking by Old Trafford prior to going in and having a couple of hours or to yourself, a couple of points and soaking it in. That's as well as anything. I'm going to come back to you, Julio. Just, and obviously this is going to be a relatively short podcast tonight, lads, based on the time, etc. I'm just going to come to you with a quick starting 11 score prediction, and as well as that, obviously, then when you you can follow up Declan, should I say, after Julio. And got a big tongue twisted there. Apologies.
Okay, so you want a starting lineup from me, yeah? Banana obviously in there. I would love to make a change at fullback. I'd love to take Delo out of the team, but unless he shifts Lissandro Martinez out there and brings, I don't know, Maguire in, I just don't see that happening, annoyingly. So it would be the same. I think it might be the same back four as at the weekend. The midfield is going to be the interesting one. I'm probably going to say Ugarte, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes as the midfield three. And then I think, hopefully, a front three of Rashford, Xerxes, and Amad Diallo.
Okay.
For a score prediction, I'm probably going to go with a 2-1 Porto win, sadly.
Okay. Well, that's, you know what, realistically, we're a very open fan channel and we're unbiased, realistically. We want to do Manchester United to do well. We're in a poor run of form, and I appreciate the honesty, Julio, considering. Declan, what do you think? Are you more on the same lines of Julio, or what do you think yourself?
I really, really hope Julio's wrong.
Yeah, I do as well. Believe me.
Like I'm. Do you know what? I'm going for a 2-1 United win. I think Erik is going to have to realise if the results don't change, he's gone. So I think he's going to have to just dig deep. I don't think there'll be much changes. I'd expect to see Casemiro and Ugarte in the midfield. I don't think he's going to go Casemiro Eriksen. I don't think he can. I think he's going to have to go all out for the win tomorrow night, because really, like, he knows himself that his job's on the line now and has been for a while. So it's more about getting results now than performances for him at the moment. So he has to go all out. I'm going for Garnacho and not even Rashford, but Xerxes to score tomorrow night. And please God, I hope I'm right. Just give me one win. Come on, man.
I hope you're bleeding right as well. Just again, I know you've touched on obviously the scoreline, etc. And I did ask you a question in regards to potential midfield partnership. But do you see any changes based on Julio's starting 11? Anything that you'd like to see tomorrow? Starting 11, basically.
Like, I definitely think the defence is going to stay the same. Onana's always going to be in goal anyway, and the back four are going to. I don't think he'll change the low or any of them, so they're definitely staying the same. I think the midfield is definitely going to be Ugarte and Casemiro. I'd love him to. I'd see him start Ahmed. Ahead of Rashford. I would. I just think Ahmed has shown a lot more this season already. I know Rashford has scored all right, but I definitely think Ahmed has shown more attacking threat for us, and Garnacho has probably been one of the more better performers. So I think those two deserve their place ahead of Rashford, and I'd take Xerxes up there to even try batter their back line and just get us a fucking win.
Yeah. Do you know, I know, obviously, again, he's a young enough player, and look, he comes anyone to play for Manchester United who isn't basically doing ultimately what a purchase for. Anyone who comes in as a striker is expected to score goals. Realistically, no matter what people say, like, oh, you know, oh, well, he's a good link-up player, and very tactically astute. He brings people into the game, but he's not scoring goals, unfortunately. From my perspective. I hope he does. I hope he changes his course around, because people will get very frustrated as such,
And I think that's a point that Man United missed out on this transfer window. We don't have an out-and-out goal scorer, and that's what we're missing more than anything. We can turn up, play against Crystal Palace, but we couldn't buy a goal. We needed Harry Kane and Ivan Toney during the summer, someone like that.
Well, That's evident now, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
we're not just talking about the first 1 or 2 games. Like, people can say what they want. Southampton only come up from the Championship, and we absolutely went out there that day. And we played relatively well and got our result. And obviously the following week again, like I said, in the League Cup, when we scored 7, and then it seemed like everyone thought that the tide had turned, and realistically we were going to go out and go to Crystal Palace, as well as that. Obviously, a very very tough ground to go to for no matter what team is playing, and get a result, but we could not score based on the amount of chances that we created, and that seems to be the narrative this year altogether. Now, as well as that, we can't say about the Spurs game over the weekend, because I can't think of a decent chance that I said to myself, okay, well, X person should have realistically scored there. Sierski seems to be getting himself into good positions from a scoring perspective, but he's not. There's no fruition currently. But
No.
again, as well as that, he's a young player. He's boisterous. We want them to just, touch on, because, again, like I said, when you're bought in such a position, people want you scoring goals. And Manchester United's fan base are very quick to jump on players, 100%. And everyone could say it. Players gone by. Phil Jones even touched on his last podcast. Like, it's a tough place. It's a tough place. Let alone people from external clubs getting involved, i.e., on social media, etc. Like, our fan base at times can be very, very cruel to
Yeah.
players, and obviously management. It's something that, it's a driving factor in players wanting to leave the club, and that was probably part of the Sandro stuff as well. Realistically, the fan base didn't want them after everything that had happened last year. And do you know what? Again, albeit this is somewhat tongue in cheek, like rightly so. We're not going to go back and touch on that. Lad, ultimately it was only on tonight. I know obviously we haven't touched on too much in the time. Again, as well as that, I appreciate the patience. I haven't been doing this too long in regards to hosting, as well as that I touch on the fact that I am obviously in a a substitute spot for Dara. I'm not sure if it was mentioned previously, but obviously he's out for the time being. Himself and his partner had a beautiful baby not too long ago. Thankfully, all is fit well, and baby's healthy. I just want to say congratulations to them and for everyone who tuned in and obviously was in the comments, etc. I just want to again say thanks very much. We appreciate your support going forward, and we will 100% talk to you soon. Hopefully the next time that I talk to you is ourselves, lads. Again, as well as that, it seems to be a jinx considering I said the weekend, but it's off the back of a win, and hopefully we can get off course. And I like what you said, Declan. I don't care who it hits or what it hits, as long as Manchester United come out with a result tomorrow against it's going to be tough. It's going to be, but sure. Look, our hearts are already broken, lads, so you can't break them any further. Isn't that what you say? Anyway, lads, thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon, please God.
Cheers, lads.